Hi there, I'm Steve Bauer, North District Commissioner, and I want to welcome you to Commissioner's Corner. Today we want to give you an update on a project that we talked about a couple of years ago, the Village Green, and we want to talk about a really powerful vision for the Kingston community, but more importantly, we also want to talk about the power of partnerships in trying to make that vision come to life. Kingston's a little different than a lot of the other smaller communities in the county because the county asked Kingston to take on the role of becoming an urban growth area, which means that it would have a lot more density. It would more than double its population in the next 20 years. So you'd have 5,000 people living in Kingston itself, but in the north end, so as part of that function is that Kingston then serves as a hub for the north end and could be serving as many as 10 or 15,000 people. One of the issues I think when you create an urban community is that you really want a sense of community identity. And the only thing that Kingston really has right now is a badly outmoded community center, a 1930s vintage church that has had several other lives. It's right at the Y of the highway as the ferry traffic comes in and out. The senior center portion of it is really inadequate for the current population of seniors here and the projected population. The handicap ramp is a death-defying experience down a concrete ramp with a concrete wall at the end, so if you don't stop at time, it's really pretty bad situation.
Then you're really disabled.
Then you're really disabled. The library, which is one of the most popular in the county, is heavily used, very popular, but too small. The meeting rooms, there's no soundproofing so that if you've got events going upstairs, you can't conduct meetings. So all in all, it's a totally outmoded facility. The county recognizes that if we're asking Kingston to take on this role of being an urban growth area, that it really needs some kind of civic presence. And that's what this discussion's about today. Years ago, Commissioner Andreessen asked a group of citizens to come together and to advise the county on how we could replace that old community center. This group of citizens have taken that task way beyond just replacing that and come up with a beautiful dream for a civic presence for the entire future community. And it fits as part of a bigger picture of the transformation of Kingston itself. One of the nice things for us to work with here is that we've got a group of really motivated, creative, and innovative folks who are living here who really want to make Kingston a special community. So we're in the Village Green site, which is just 2 blocks away from downtown. The plans are to really transform that downtown into a walkable, livable community, and this is really part of that dream. So what we're going to talk about today is how that dream has come to be, what it looks like in terms of the pieces, and we're going to be talking with several of the partners who are going to make that dream possible. Now, from the county's perspective, the county has put a fair amount of money into this project. The property that we're standing on right here that you can see in this portion of the diagram used to be Navy housing, and the county spent almost $2 million buying this property, tearing down the old housing units that was here, and providing the materials for the development of the park, but it was the volunteers in the community who actually came and built this beautiful park that is heavily used and has been since it was opened last year, which I think is a real affirmation of the support of the community for this project. So the county has resources it can put into it. It can provide land, it can provide some money, but the fact is the county doesn't have enough money to build a new community center. It also doesn't have money to operate that community center once it's complete. And up on the back portion of this property used to be a county sewer plant. That now has been taken down. We have a pump station. That frees up land for a potential park site and for a site for the community center, but we don't have the money to develop or maintain that park either. And so that's why we've really had to rely on partnership with the community. I think 2 years ago, Bobby Moore, the executive director of the Village Green Foundation, and I talked about this plan, but we've come a long ways from that. And Bobby, I want to welcome you today, and maybe you can talk a little about the history of how we got here, and then what the pieces of the plan are and where we are in terms of achieving it.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that because the last 2 years have certainly seen dramatic changes for this project. Even if we just look at the last year, and the project's history, as Steve alluded to, really goes back 30 years. So you could look at it in 10-year segments. For 30 years, it was a gleam in the community's eyes. For the last 20 years, there have been plans. And then in the last 10 years, it's really taken off. And in the last year in particular, because the county did acquire this property, we were able to actually start developing plans. When we opened the park last summer, we raised enough money to do a site survey. Now we know exactly where the building can go on the rise above where we're standing, overlooking Kingston Cove. And we know where it can't go because we know the boundary of the stream. And we know where everything will fit. In this last 10 years, before we got to the point where we had plans, we asked the community what they wanted here. And what they wanted was very clear. They wanted a library. They wanted a new library. They wanted a library that was more than 1,200 square feet, which is what we have. They want a Boys and Girls Club, a place for kids to go after school. And the middle school in the North Kitsap School District here in Kingston has been good enough to loan space for the Boys and Girls Club for a really needed program. We had a couple of teen suicides in the last decade, very close to one another, and it became really obvious that the middle school population was really at risk without something to do in the after school hours in particular. So the building that you see here is about 25,000 square foot. About a third of that is for the library, about a third for the Boys and Girls Club, and the remainder community meeting rooms, a commercial kitchen that will help to provide for revenue. Because there's a big focus on local farming in the Kingston area, and we're not quite urban yet. We still have a big rural component in this area. And people are wanting to have a commercial kitchen to use for making jams and goods for sale and so forth. And large and small community meeting rooms, and then this common space that's a gymnasium that will be usable by the Boys and Girls Club when it's Boys and Girls Club hours and by the community in other hours. Those features were pretty much defined by surveys that were conducted in the early part of the decade. And because we had those plans, it became really natural to pursue partnerships with the people that would be interested in seeing all these things happen. The senior center is a big part of it. In this corner of the building, the part that you alluded to, Steve, is just really dreadful. It's an underserved part of the population already, and the two pieces of Kingston's population that are pushing population growth are apparently seniors trying to make their retirement dollars go further, and young families doing the same thing. Therefore, these elements of the building and the fact that they will be located together in a vibrant kind of establishment, especially co-located with the low-income senior housing that's going to be next door to it, are really more than a dream at this point.
And you know, one of the things that I really like about this building and others, everything from the Speaker of the House, Frank Chop, to the funders that we've talked to, like about this building is that it really is multi-generational. What has happened in the past in a lot of communities is you get a separate senior center, you get a separate kids center, you get a library over here, you got community rooms together, but they don't really relate. And I think it makes a lot more sense to have a building where the seniors can mentor and work with the kids can interact with the seniors, and so this does it. In addition to that, it's a lot more efficient and cheaper to build a single building than having to build and maintain several of those. So that really leads to the other question: how are we coming on the fundraising? Because I know you've got several million to raise. I know that you've gone out and solicited the community, and you've really gotten some very favorable response here in the community, but where are we on the fundraising?
And the really good news is that the people who pledged their support 2 years ago when we first thought about approaching the state have come through with their pledges. So we have approached about $250,000 in money that's pledged and
that's great,
and collected locally. And in addition to that, we're going to be looking in the direction of Olympia for a grant. When you mentioned Frank Chop, he came to see the project 2 years ago and really liked it. There's a program called Building Communities Fund that's specifically for facilities like this that have multiple purposes and that are providing social services that can't be really provided without the state's help. And the state, it's a very good program because while it does require that we are able to demonstrate local funding progress, it will pay up to 25% of eligible construction costs. And it will also pay retroactively, so the costs that we incurred last summer getting the site surveyed and so forth are also eligible for reimbursement under this program. That is also going to be aided by, our cause will be aided by, we hope, seeing a Metropolitan Park District in place. And various funders that we have approached have seen the value of this from the standpoint of guaranteeing that there is a steady stream of income on a renewable basis for funding of operations and maintenance. And that's all of the features and facilities and resources and operations of the building. There's a ballot measure August 17th, and when I'm speaking for the Village Green Foundation, I can't really urge people to vote one way or the other, but there's a lot of information out about it, and it does seem like it's an essential piece of ensuring that when we go to the state, they see that we have thought about how the building is going to be maintained.
So a couple pieces here, we're running a little late here, but one of them that I think really appeals to the state and the others is when they see grant applicants for a project like this, they typically see big organizations that have got a lot of history. The thing that's really unique about this is that this is a community-sponsored program, and that does make it different. The second thing is that it's not enough to just build the building, but you got to operate it. That's been one of the problems for the county. This Metropolitan Park District measure that's on in August would provide for local elected folks to lead that, but its purpose, as I understand it, would be to raise the funds to operate the building so the community would be assured that it could be operated in the long term. Now, an important partner in this other part of the building is the Boys and Girls Club. We have Bill Sukalis who's the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club of Snohomish County. Bill, maybe you can tell us a little about your involvement and interest here, the programs that the Boys and Girls Club would offer.
Sure, yeah, you've done a good job already in explaining the intergenerational piece of this, and the concept is not unique to our organization. We've partnered with most of the communities in Snohomish County. That's what allowed us to grow as rapidly as we have. Our umbrella stretches across 14 communities in Snohomish County, and we've actually grown now not only here in Kitsap with this project, but also onto Island County with Coupeville and Oak Harbor. And we don't own a lot of real estate. What's allowed us to grow is to work with the communities that have brought something to the table, like you have here, and we come in and be a part of it. And the piece that we'll be involved with here is strictly related to the kids. And that's what separates us from a lot of other organizations, good organizations that might already work with kids. But those organizations only occupy a fraction of the time that kids have, free time that kids have. So this building will be designed to have daily access for kids. In our experience, there's kids that need it every day, and there's kids that just need it frequently. So we always want to make sure the doors are open. And the model that works best for us is that we want to make sure that there's there's dedicated space for the kids, so that there's not the competition for time and space that would limit their access, because the more availability increases the frequency. We put a lot of things in play on a daily basis. The typical design of a Boys and Girls Club would have a what we call a games room, social area where kids can come and go, and socialize, have time together. And then there's also space for the arts, for technology. You've got a gym here. We know that kids need to exercise. They've been in school all day. So that's typically the model that we have. And speaking of the fundraising, we are going to be looking at conducting a feasibility study. Our board has approved this project as one that we would work with to go out and talk to individuals in the community about support for the project and see if we can do that.
Well, we really appreciate your interest, and one of the questions people may have is why Snohomish County, and my understanding is because there really isn't a parent organization here in Kitsap, and this group has been allowed to affiliate with you. You provide a lot of advice and oversight services and other things, and I think that really comes true when it comes to the fundraising for this, that you're really going to help make that part happen. So, I like the Boys and Girls Club because I think it's really affordable and it really focuses on the kids, and we've already got that in place, and really appreciate your being here and your help. We're going to take a break now, and if we get time in the second half, we'll come back and talk some more with Bill and Bobby, but we're going to talk next to Martha and Mary, who are putting in the senior housing part of this project, and also Kitsap Regional Library that has got plans for putting the new library here. So stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Remember, we're talking about the Village Green, and we've already talked about the partnership. We've had three of the partners: the county, the Village Green Foundation, and the Kingston community, and the Boys and Girls Club. Now we're going to talk to Martha and Mary, that's going to provide senior housing, and we're going to talk with Kingston, or the Kitsap Regional Library, about the library part of the program. One of the issues that we see is an aging population, and at least in my community of Hansville, we've got a lot of folks who've been there. They were the community builders. They've been there for decades. They're aging now. They can't continue to pay the price of the taxes on their houses. They can't continue to keep them up, but they still want to stay in the region. And one of the problems for them is they don't have any choices. They have to move out of Hansville. They have to move out of the entire north end, and we just haven't had options for them. So one of the things that I really like about this project is not only the senior center as part of the community building itself, but a senior housing facility here. And we're extremely lucky to have Martha and Mary stepping up to take on the oversight of that particular facility. They've got a wonderful range of programs throughout the rest of the county and centered in Poulsbo. And we've got with us today Chad Sulvey, who is the CEO of Martha and Mary. So maybe you can talk a little about this senior housing, how it fits in with your programs, what kind of client group that would appeal to, and what you're thinking here.
Yeah, no, we are excited. We're excited for the project, Steve. We've been watching what's been going on in Kingston for a while, and now it's getting out of the ground, getting closer to that point. When you look at Martha and Mary, we've been serving seniors a long time. For many years, seniors came to Martha and Mary, and what we're finding is people want to stay in their own homes, and they want to stay there in a place that's affordable whenever possible. So to have a campus model like this, we started a home care program a number of months ago, and we think that's going to be a nice complement to programs like this here at the Village Green. The project we're looking at here for Kingston is a senior housing, about 40 units, some 2-bedroom, some 1-bedroom. We have about 28 1-bedroom units. They're going to be between probably 600 to 800 square feet, and with proximity to the other amenities on the campus, it's really going to be a nice campus feel. It's even walking, it's going to be very mobility friendly. So you put all those things together, it's something we're very proud to be a part of. It's really important to have senior housing in Kingston. We look at the demographics countywide, and the whole county's aging, but the pocket that's aging the fastest is in North Kitsap, Kingston, and Hansville.
I think I like that.
So this is a needed project. And what's happening with seniors is care is becoming unbundled, so people can get what they want, where they want it. And when you can bring services to someone's home and they can stay there, it's affordable for them, it's a win-win.
So one of the nice things about this, and this would be, we've got a tennis court over here, this would be behind that, but the nice things that I like about this location of this is that it's right across from the senior center. so they can go across there. It's going to be in the context of a park here, but it's really just 2 blocks away from downtown Kingston, which is going to be a very walkable community. So the fact that people can still be here and they can be active and they can be vigorous and they can be connected to the community, this is just an ideal marriage of parts of the project.
The amenities that this campus is going to have is something that, quite frankly, would be built by a large, maybe for-profit agency that was only for people that could afford it. And when you have partnerships like you described earlier, you still get the amenities, but it becomes more efficient, more affordable, and the whole community, not just those at the top end of the income bracket, can really take advantage of that.
You want to take a look at your drawing and just talk about that for a second?
Yeah, these are some rough schematics. They'll probably continue to change as we get more community feedback, but we're looking at a building that's going to be built on a bit of a hillside, so it's, depending on where you're at, it's going to look 3 to 4 stories. And just as the whole area is very mobility, walking friendly, we're trying to make the building also very easy. Not a lot of long hallways. Since we've been involved, we started talking to other projects here in Kitsap, other projects around the Puget Sound area. Certainly these large buildings with long hallways and things that make mobility a little bit more difficult, that's something we want to correct in our design when we plan for the Village Green here in Kingston.
You know, one of the things that we looked at another operator for this facility when the county was working on this, and I was really thrilled when I learned that Martha and Mary was interested in taking this on. I think I've told you before, I had a neighbor who had a stroke and spent a couple of years at Martha and Mary Rehabilitation, and the care that you guys provided them was just terrific. And I know that you'll bring that same kind of compassion and caring for people when you bring them to this facility. And you know, these are large enough that they're still reasonable living spaces for people. They're going to be affordable, so they're not priced out of the market. And they're going to give people in the North End an option for staying here that they just don't have anywhere else. The choice is they have to go to Silverdale, Polsbo, or some other place, but they don't have connection with their community. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being willing to take on this project.
We're excited to be part of it.
So Jill Jean is the director of the Kitsap Regional Library, and this is the last and certainly not the least exciting part of it. I think we heard from Bobby earlier that one of the things that the community has really wanted from day one is an expanded new library. Just like in central Kitsap, you know, the whole campus project we've got going on there, one of the issues that the public really has been interested in is a library for that population center. I tell stories about when I first went to this library. I think it's a community library. It's connected with the community, and one of the things that I liked is I went, I think just before Easter, and on the counter they had a box of baby chickens for the kids. So it's, you know, it's really, it's not something that's cold and austere. It really is part of the community. This library, every time you go in there, it's just crammed full of people. And if we're talking about doubling the population up here, we really need more space and a better library than we've got. So how about talking, so this is the library, the general layout is behind the community center would be the library.
That is correct.
You want to tell us a little your thinking about it?
Well, right now we actually have a space that is very inadequate. It's about a little under 1,300 square feet, and what we're hoping for is a facility that is closer to 8,000 square feet, and we're very excited about that. And just this morning I was talking to one of our teen librarians, and she said, you know, it just really kills her because she's trying to provide excellent service for families and teens and small children, and she said that a lot of people choose to go to the Polsbo Library because it's more of an adequate sized library, because they often don't find the kinds of, even though they find that wonderful sense of community, they often don't find the space to either use computers or even to sit to study or just to be as a family. And we really want all of our libraries to be real destinations for families and teens that they choose, because they can stay in their neighborhood and access good services.
People really trip over themselves in that current facility.
They sure do, yeah.
And you know, I want to commend you. I think when I moved over to the county 13, 14 years ago, one of my first really pleasant discoveries was the library system. And I think that we're really lucky in Kitsap County to have one of the best library systems anywhere. You guys just do a great job. The fact that you would take on adding this is really important. Everybody's sort of strapped for cash, so how is it that you could contemplate putting this in now?
Well, we've tried to do some really creative thinking, and I think our first sort of order of business was to get our own budget into shape and be at a place where we could be very responsive to the voters and be very clean about being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And I think we're at that point. But we will need to go back to our voters to ask them to support new structures, new buildings, new libraries in some of our communities. And so we are looking at the potential, it isn't a sure thing yet, of having a library levy in November where we will add some capital dollars to an operating levy to really get new libraries started in the Kingston area and a few other locations throughout Kitsap County.
Okay, so the voters may be seeing a levy coming up,
They
and
may
part
be
of that
seeing it.
levy would allow you to build this facility.
That is correct.
8,000 square feet, so 4 or 5 times as much space, a full range of services there.
That's correct.
The original plan had been to have this be a single building because of setbacks and stuff. We've had to separate them into a couple of buildings, but they're still connected so that, again, the kids can use the library, the seniors can use the library, and then it's in the context of this bigger park. So again, I think, I know the foundation and the community, and I really appreciate the library district stepping up and potentially making this possible.
Well, we believe in partnership, and we are very excited to be a partner in this project and think we can add a lot to the value of this site and get a lot of value from who else is located here. So we are ready to go if we're able to get the funding.
So I think that's the word, partnerships. I think one of the things that we learn is as everybody is really limited in resources, we can't do things by ourselves anymore. If we're really going to do the exciting, creative things, then we've got to find partners. And what you've seen today, I think, is the best model that I know of in the county of a host of organizations and agencies coming together to make a partnership that really makes a beautiful vision come true. It's not just theoretical. You can see this park that the community developed. They're serious about it. I think the thing that is unique about the Village Green Foundation or the Village Green program is that it came from the community, it's owned by the community, and the community is going to take on responsibility for its construction and oversight for the long term. So this is a great model for us as we look at other areas of the county, and we really appreciate everybody's involvement. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.